So with AJ Lee making a big comeback to WWE, it got me thinking what have been my favourite wrestling comebacks over the last 25 years, whatever the flub it's been. And listen, there'll be some I haven't included because they probably just don't mean as much to me in my tum-tum, or I forgot, okay? I am but a basic human man. I'm a little bit stupid, but it's always nice to go down nostalgia lane. That's why I'd always ask you to get in the comments as well and share your best memories about your favourite comebacks. And also, do not forget, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Simon316, where we do watch-alongs. So if you would care to join that, you can send me a message over there, and so can the people that are on there right now. And you can say, Simon, we should react, we should rewatch this amazing comeback from whatever, 1972 or 2024, and I'd be happy to do that as we continue to grow that community. And I do want to say thank you very much to everybody that does support me there. Otherwise, though, go get yourself a cup of coffee or maybe a cake for a sugary piece of goodness. Let's talk about the 10 best comebacks in wrestling history, according to this bald idiot. So number 10, John Cena, 2008 Royal Rumble in Madison Square Garden, the old Madison Square Garden, so you had that little rampway thingamajig. And the reason I liked it so much is because I didn't see it coming. Now, in 2008, had I got into the dirt sheet game yet? Did you use that ridiculous term? Probably. I think that was after I'd gone away from wrestling and then come back to it. And I usually find the reason people do return to wrestling and you have your own comeback is all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, there's a whole news culture that tells you what's going on behind the scenes, and sometimes it's more interesting than the stories themselves. And of course, Cena had torn his pec in late 2007. We had some kind of mega surgery. Nobody thought he could come back in, 3 months, which is absolutely nuts. I know what people say. They're all like, oh man, he must have taken a bunch of stuff. There ain't nothing you can take that does that. Some of it has to be super genetics, right? I don't want to go down that path. I do have a fitness channel though. Maybe we'll talk about it over there. But I just remember watching it, assuming number 30 would be some kind of a surprise, but scratching my then not bald head and being like, well, who the hell was it going to be? Surely it's going to be a disappointment unless there's somebody we're not even thinking about right now. I mean, I don't think Goldberg was rumoured, but of course Goldberg's 2003 year in WWE wasn't great, so, maybe you could try and rectify that. But when John Cena's music hit, it's the best reaction, because Madison Square Garden cheers him because they're excited, they're wrestling fans, they understand, oh my gosh, we're about to experience a moment, and then about 20 seconds later they go, oh wait, no, we don't like this guy. It was during the time when people had decided John Cena sucks, sing the song, and they just started to boo him. It is so funny to watch them update themselves in real time as if they're robots. Triple H always sells it great. Triple H was always good at selling comebacks, much like he did with Cactus Jack in 1997. I presume it was, so 11 years prior to this. Of course, John Cena would go on to win. The whole thing is great. The whole thing is awesome. And yes, you didn't see it coming. Now, I've talked about this before and people go crazy. I've just accepted that we live in a spoiler world, so some things are going to get spoiled for you, and I still enjoy watching them take place on my screen. I'm always like, well, there's bigger things in the world that I should be worrying about than this. But it's always better when you don't know, and like I said, I had absolutely no clue, and it genuinely made me go, well, hot damn, son, that was a barrel of laughs. Isn't pro wrestling so great? And also, the reason I know it's good is every now and then I look to my left, and I look to my right, and I will decide to go watch it again on YouTube, because no matter what anybody says about me, I am one giant nerd. Moving on to number 9, it is Shawn Michaels in 2002, where once again Triple H is involved, because Shawn Michaels came back to wrestle Triple H. Now, this was during my first wrestling watch. I hadn't left, so to speak. And listen, I was there for the entire rise of Steve Austin. I was basically a super duper child, so seeing a man walk around and drink beer and stun the boss and swear at everybody was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've told this story before when I went to school in a Austin 316 t-shirt, the one with the skeleton on that is flipping everybody off, and I got sent home because I didn't realize it was such an offensive thing. It's a very bad day in the childhood life of Simon Miller. But of course, the rise of Steve Austin when he won the championship, it started before then, also coincides with the exit stage left of Shawn Michaels after his back had been destroyed by The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble in that casket match. And I do remember all the chat both on the screen and off the screen, and people in the playground, oh, Shawn Michaels is never going to come back. He's retired. I remember someone said he's going to WCW. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And of course, he wasn't gone for the duration of this. He would come back as the commissioner, and then he was in the NWO for about 10 minutes. So when he came back at that pay-per-view take on Triple H in the street fight, it was just crazy because everybody was worried. Everybody became Shawn Michaels' dad. And he was taking such big bumps, although I presume we did it in a stipulation match to try and have some smoke and mirrors. But when he went to the table, or when Triple H, I think, hit him with a sledgehammer or steel chairs, whatever the flub it was, you were like, well, how's his back going to stand up to this? Because the rhetoric and the story for 4 years had been Shawn Michaels bad back, Shawn Michaels can't wrestle, bad back. And then there was the whole conversation of, well, is Shawn Michaels part 2 going to be better than Shawn Michaels part 1? It's an an argument. You can make a whole video on that. I think I would probably lean towards Shawn Michaels Part 2. But then again, you need Shawn Michaels Part 1 to get Shawn Michaels Part 2. It's why comparison is the thief of joy. But I think it wasn't necessarily the comeback itself. Like, it wasn't like the John Cena one we just talked about. You're like, oh my gosh. There was more of a build to it. But I remember that match starting and Triple H smirking like, I'm going to kill you, bro. It was just awesome. And it just sort of had you on tenterhooks the whole time. And just to say it again, it made you feel something. It was a moment. And there was an emotional attachment to it. And then, of course, he would go on to win the World Championship sort of a few months after that, his last ever world title run. Then everything with The Undertaker and Chris Jericho and everybody else he fought. It was just awesome. And it was just all-time stuff. And, of course, it started in 2002. And this is pretty much the earliest one. And I would suppose that's because when I started watching wrestling, there was no one to come back, right? Everybody I was learning about was either sort of before I'd started watching it or just gone from wrestling entirely. So I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but Shawn Michaels was definitely one of the first dudes when I was like, wait, that guy that I watched all those years ago, now he's going to do all this? And then, like an idiot, I think 6 months after he came back, I did take my first wrestling break. So it was just massive to me, and just seeing those matches and genuinely being worried about someone. Nobody needs my concern in that sense, but I couldn't help it. Just thought it was terrific. I just thought it was great. And again, what he did afterwards, that's why he's one of the best. Number 8 is a bit of a different one, but I wanted to get it in here because I obviously didn't experience this in real time. I didn't get into Japanese wrestling until sort of way later. But in 2006, you had Kenta Kobashi. I'm sure most people have heard of Kenta Kobashi. He is not only a Japanese legend, but a legend overall. You should go and watch his matches today. You should watch his rise to the top, which is like Daniel Bryan times 100. That doesn't really work as a comparison, but you know what I'm talking about. But when he was the GHC Tag Team Champion in 2006, he got diagnosed with cancer. And this was like serious cancer. I mean, well, cancer isn't serious, but it was sort of like, how is he ever going to return to professional wrestling? It wasn't like, I found this out, but I'm in remission. It was like, no, I've got to go away and deal with this. And you can read the stories. I think there's photos out there. Just completely decimated him, and nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew what was going down. And he came back in like late 2007. It was around about December. The atmosphere is incredible, and that's really why you have to read the story first, because context is king, right? And it's going to allow you to tap in, use the word again, emotionally to all of this. But the way that people react to him, how amazed they are that he's able to do this. There are people crying because they thought he was going to die. Like, that is kind of the news that did the rounds. So to not only come back, and I think there's stories about this, but there must be because I've read them somewhere, but to go through what he had to do, like even becoming a quote-unquote, living a normal life, I should say, was going to be hard enough. But then to take it a step further and get back in wrestling shape and do what he once did and, take on the tippity top, because he comes back and he loses to Misawa, right? But that's why it's so damn cool, because after he has lost, standing ovation from everyone. It's not about wins and losses or defeats or victory or championships or titles. Everybody knew the deal. Of course, everyone likes to pretend kayfabe has been alive since yesterday. No, everyone knew what the deal with wrestling was. So to see somebody battle so much in their real life and then come back into the sports entertainment realm, and I mean, he wasn't the same guy he once was, but he was still a beast among men, right? It's an absolute mammoth, an absolute giant. And his aura, to use the modern day words, was almost bigger because people knew what he had gone through and he'd conquered it. And I suppose a lot of it was inspiring people as well. They're like, if Kenta can do it, maybe I can do it as well. And of course, he would go on just to have so many moments after this that always meant twice as much because he had done this. So yes, you do have to go to this retroactively. But I just kind of felt like it should be in here because I wouldn't say that it's more serious than the ones that we're going to talk about. But when you see that reaction and you see what it means to people, and you can see it in his face as well. This was like it's like a tough old school wrestler, but even he is just Mr. Emotion. It is awesome and it's wonderful. And it's also, I'm going to be me, so forgive me. It's also a nice reminder that wrestling is we should focus on the good side of wrestling sometimes. I know there's nonsense, and I know we can grift, and I know we can get negative Nancy's, but this is something where maybe it could only have sort of felt this way in wrestling because, again, the fans have been so dialed into what it was doing. So, like I say, it's all that on YouTube. You can go and watch it today. You should probably just go and watch as many Kenta Kobashi matches as you absolutely can because, my gosh, even today, you could steal a lot of his repertoire and probably get over as a damn special moment. Number 7 is completely different to that, and this one speaks to me. It's WrestleMania 38 and the return of Cody Rhodes. It was just the best, like it was. I remember sitting there, or standing at the time, and being like, well, we all know it's going to be Cody. The rumors are out there. We've all believed the rumors. But even then, there was just a teeny tiny piece of doubt in your stomach that he was going to do this. And then not only does he come out as the American Nightmare, he's got the music, he's got the clothes. It was just the AEW presentation in WWE, and it blew my mind. And I remember thinking afterwards, This, not that it meant something to me. I felt like I've been a part of history. And it's all, I go and watch it on YouTube all the time because I'm such a loser and I'm disgusting. And somebody fired me out of a cannon into a wall. But it was just perfect. And also, it was the first big guy jumping from AEW to WWE. And before WrestleMania 38, it'd all been going the other way. And then, of course, he's in a massive match with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, which is the reason he left WWE to begin with. So it had been full circle and he would start his story. It was just perfectly done, to be completely honest with you. And maybe it was because I was there on the evening and people couldn't believe it, but the atmosphere, the noise, it was just super duper special. Like it really was. It was one of the best things I've ever been a part of live. And I think it was just because you got the music. It was just like surreal for people's brains. It was like, but this is the AEW thing. Even the, wrestling has more than one Raw family. And it's just not something that Vince McMahon, who at the time was in charge, would do. He would always want to recreate somebody in his own image. And I would imagine Cody had gone, no. You didn't that's what you did before and you ruined me. I'm coming back as the American Nightmare. And I think it's great. And I think it's awesome. In terms of my modern wrestling life, it is one of my favorite comebacks. Although we're also going to talk about WrestleMania 38 again later. But for now, let's hit pause. And number 6 also ties into this because it's Shane McMahon in 2019. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was Shane McMahon's biggest fan. I wasn't his biggest detractor either. I enjoyed everything he did with the Attitude Era. I thought he was a natural at it. I understood the risks that he took and they scared the absolute shit out of me. But it's not like I was clamoring for it. I don't want to sort of like misrepresent myself because I'm sure there were some people out there that were sort of like, oh my gosh, Shane McMahon is back. But it's a very interesting year for me when he did come. I think it was 2019. I meant 2016. Did I say that? I can't remember. I meant 2016. So I've said it now. You can get mad in the comments. But to give you a little insight into my life, much like Dusty Rhodes, I had hit hard times. I won't get into it too much, but I was living in the smallest flat imaginable. Like you wouldn't believe, if I showed you a picture, you'd be like, there's no way you lived in that, Simon. But again, I don't want to get into that. But it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Difficult, I suppose. It wasn't the most fun time to be in the world of Simon Miller. Not that I was like depressed or anything like that, but it was just a little bit of a struggle. And the one thing that would always give me a wonderful distraction was professional wrestling. So there I was making my breakfast, watching Raw on a Tuesday morning because, of course, I slept that night and decided to watch it the next day. I was making my eggs in my tiny, well, I call it a kitchen, but the kitchen was attached to everything else. And Shane McMahon's music hit. After Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon done that stupid memorial ceremony or whatever it was, and I genuinely turned around because I just had it behind me. I was just sort of half paying attention. I couldn't believe it. Like I genuinely couldn't believe it. I was like, Shane McMahon is back. Like it blew my brain. It was totally crazy. And yeah, it was just one of those things where I was stunned. I think that's fair to say. Just because all the reports had always been, he's on the outs with Vince McMahon. He wanted to start a thing online and they didn't want to do it. Or he wanted to put ECW on WWE.com and now he's out in China doing his business stuff. And I suppose it goes back to the John Cena thing. I hadn't read it anywhere and nobody had said it to me. And, given that I have a frying pan, I'm cooking eggs. And it genuinely made me do this. And turn around and then rewind so I could watch it again. I think it was pretty special. And the reaction is huge because, once again, I don't think anybody, I don't know where they were from, but wherever that town was, the people in the arena that night did not think Shane McMahon was about to come out. Even though when you watch it now, it seems pretty obvious. Like it's definitely Vince McMahon going, oh my gosh, we're the best. Of course, all the lockbox stuff followed, which was total garbage, but I don't have to worry about that. It was like 10 years ago, whatever it was. So, yeah, just awesome, just great. And I think in that moment, it reminded me, isn't wrestling the best? Because you do never know what's going to happen. And it allowed me to forget all the nonsense. And for that moment, let's be really corny here, I was living in a mansion. It's not true, I was living in a hole. But it happens. And the whole thing is you can learn about yourself in those experiences. And when you do come out the other side, it will strengthen you as a character. Don't need to talk about that. Put in Shane McMahon here. And yes, number 5 is CM Punk coming back in August 2021 as part of AEW Rampage, and you can throw the Survivor Series one in there too. They are equal to me because they both have crazy stories. The AEW one is 10 years in the making and nobody could believe it. Like, even though it was the All-State Arena, right, was sold out on a rumor. Even on the day, people were like, nah, it won't be CM Punk. Even though AEW would have destroyed all their goodwill, given how much they let into it. And then it was the same in the WWE Survivor Series because nobody thought it was going to happen. Oh, they're not going to touch him, or it's too soon, or we're we're going to have to let things calm down a little bit. But no, he popped up in Chicago both times. And the man is an anomaly. I've talked about it time and time again. He was born to be a pro wrestler, which does sound really cheesy, but I've never sort of seen, there's few people that can captivate an audience, be that positively or negatively, like CM Punk. And given that a lot of wrestling is just about noise and chatter and getting people involved, that's what he does. And the AEW Rampage one, I think I don't want to say it's more special, that's not fair, but of course it's the first one, so it's always sort of maybe a little bit above. But there's people crying, and there's people going nuts. Remember that one guy that cried and somebody got on there, or lots of people got on their case? How sad is that? Like, the one thing you never want to do as you grow older is forget the childlike emotions that you have. And like, if you fight back tears, I won't be that guy, but the way I see it is you're probably being a little bit, I don't like the word cowardly, but if you are fighting back tears and you're not brave enough to let water come out of your seeing devices, that feels worse to me. Like, that is your body wanting to have an emotional response to something. You should jump for joy about that. You should do a backflip. I think it's awesome that you can cry about something like that. If CM Punk meant so much to you that when he came back, you cried. That is the greatest thing in the world. I cried before my first WrestleMania. I cried before the first time I went to see Metallica. There's a bunch of other stuff. Who cares, man? That's what life is all about. It's like living. So when people go, you still like wrestling, you're an adult. Yeah, I want to keep more of my childhood stuff alive. Otherwise, good grief, I might as well throw myself on the ground now. But CM Punk spoke to a huge fan base. And when he cut that promo in 2011, so many people started watching again. He was their guy. He was the dude they could believe in. Then he went away. Now he was back. And they were going to ride that CM Punk train regardless. We saw it in AEW. We saw it when it jumped to WWE. Both are awesome. Both are excellent. And, you know, I would imagine that probably, all things considered, Punk probably considers the Survivor Series comeback one of the best moments of his career, if not the moment of his career. And it is amazing. Like, if you can elicit that kind of response and you can get that kind of emotion from people, I'm never going to argue with it. I thought it was great. And yes, number 4 is back to WrestleMania 38 and the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think really this is number 1 for me, but you know, it's fun to have fun with these lists. The fact it happened on the same weekend as Cody Rhodes, which of course was a story, right? Because Cody Rhodes leaving AEW and Steve Austin coming back to WWE broke at the same time. And given the modern audience, the Cody Rhodes story just buried Steve Austin coming back. Then he cut that amazing promo and just became Stone Cold again. I absolutely loved it. And I loved it twofold. One, because I got to be involved in a Stone Cold Steve Austin WrestleMania experience, which I never thought was going to be possible. But on the second night, it's a shame it's so tainted now. You also got the surprise pop when he came out after all the Pat McAfee, Vince McMahon stuff, Austin Theory, etc. And I wasn't ready for that. And I usually when I go to shows these days, because I'm making notes for ups and downs, I just enjoy sort of taking in the atmosphere. And I don't want to blow out my voice. I still have a great time. When Austin came out that second time, I just went nuts. Like, I was 8 years old, like, oh my God, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I love the match he had with Kevin Owens. Some people throw barbs at it today, which I don't understand. It's all it needed to be. Stone Cold Steve Austin takes a suplex on the floor, and he's, 58 years old or whatever, the flub. And the fact he's with Kevin Owens too, who I consider to be a modern day GOAT. It was perfect. There's nothing else I would have asked for. I love the talk show element of it. Maybe having Austin in the build would have been an improvement, but then no, because we got to save it all for WrestleMania 38 in Texas. I don't know if I even have much else to say about it, except for we're going all corny again. I was there. It felt great, and it reminded me why I love wrestling so much, and it made me want to enjoy wrestling even more than I already do. So, massive thumbs up, or I guess just a normal up from me. It's very, very simple. You don't need to dive into it deeper. And in many ways, it's why I don't want him to come back again. It won't make a difference. I don't believe in this whole you've ruined your legacy thing. It doesn't make any sense to me, unless you do something terrible in your personal life. But I don't think you'll ever be able to top that. And so it's special. I think it's the best. Moving on to SmackDown, April 2018, and yes, it's the return of Daniel Bryan. This one was crazy as well, because it broke so late. And I remember I was sat there, wherever the hell I was at the time. I think I was living in Slough. That's right, I lived in Slough for a wee while there. And it just broke on the internet. And I was like, that can't make sense, because 2 years before this, he'd been forced into retirement and then put on Talking Smack and into GM roles. He didn't want to do any of this. He kept trying to get out of his contracts. He wanted to wrestle. He didn't care what the WWE doctors said. And it's when he said, I should have looked this up before I did this video, the whole, fight for your dreams and your dreams will fight for you. Oh, once again, not a dry eye in the house. Now listen, everything else we did after, we handled the Daniel Bryan return so bad, he was a heel within a year, right? When a man is forced to retire and comes back, he should never be a bad guy again. Like all those good feelings. Now, Daniel Bryan was so good. That heel run was awesome with the environmentally friendly championship or whatever it was called. But that's irrelevant now. We don't have to worry about it. But hearing that promo, seeing the emotion on his face, I just couldn't believe it. And he was another guy. Every match after that, especially the WrestleMania one, I was like, oh my gosh, he dropped on his head. He got dropped on his head. Then he goes to AEW and does even crazier stuff. But this one is sort of in the Kobashi territory of things. Like, we thought he was done and we thought he was gone. And we loved this guy and he'd given us so much. We had our WrestleMania 30 moment and we thought that was going to be up and up and up. Then he gets injured and he loses the belt. He wins the IC title and it just continued to fall down. So I guess because he'd been so transparent and vulnerable with it, to know that he's back doing what he loved is the greatest thing ever. Like, it really was. It is so damn cool. Go and watch that promo today if you've never seen it. And it's another one. It will get you so damn inspired. Doesn't matter what you want to do. You want to be a doctor. You want to be an astronaut. You want to be a wrestler. You want to be a football player. You just want to sit on the couch and eat pizza. I mean, that one's easier, but you can still do it. It will make you at least get one step closer to those things. Because Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson, he's just the man. He really is. And in terms of his in-ring, he's probably the greatest of all time. But even as a total sports entertainer, way better than people give him credit for. Who Daniel Bryan can't cut a promo? I think he proved a lot of people wrong. Number 2, again, I think is personal to me. Middle of the pandemic. Everyone's sad. It sucked. I was very lucky because I was doing this and people wanted to watch content to be distracted. I'll never be able to thank you enough. But then on a night in December 2020, I believe it was, Sting returned on AEW Dynamite. And I didn't realize how much I loved Sting, right? Maybe it's because the WWE run was so wishy-washy, or maybe it's because WCW was so long ago. And I watched him in TNA, but TNA always kind of felt like it was just there. Although I did enjoy all the stuff that he did. But I didn't know this thing had been rumored. That may have been on me. Maybe the rumors were out there. But the presentation, the people he interrupted, the snow effect, the fact that there was like 10,000, no, it wasn't 10,000 people. The fact there was like, 800 people in the building because it was COVID and you're not allowed to certain people in, but it feels like there's 10,000 people. The noise doesn't make any sense. The noise is louder than the amount of people that are in the building, meaning some people were shouting twice as much as they would usually because they couldn't believe it was Sting. And it was in this moment I realized, oh my gosh, I love Sting. And Sting is one of my favorite wrestlers ever because, again, how it made me feel. And the journey from there, to use stupid 2025 terms, cinematic matches, to throwing himself through tables, to that crazy tag team match when he does retire. Again, anyone that is going to retire a legend should watch Revolution 2024 and just copy what Tony Khan did, right? It's absolutely perfect. It's brilliant. But that's another thing that I still go back and watch, and it makes me feel the same. I compare it to Master of Puppets. The reason I think Master of Puppets could be the greatest song ever is because sometimes it comes on, and I'm like, I've never heard this song before. I've heard it 1,000 times. In my head, I get that same feeling, and that's how I feel when I watch this thing, return, comeback, whatever you want to call it. It was the absolute greatest, and I think it did help AEW at the time. It kind of leveled them up to this, where he's so mythical and mystic, to use dumb terms. All of a sudden, AEW, I don't say it felt more credible because it was already credible, but because everybody was struggling in the pandemic, it just made you go, well, we should keep an eye on what they're doing. And it really was when AEW was on fire too. So yeah, I think it's brilliant. Obviously, we never got to the Cody Rhodes thing, which was such a shame. But we did have this past, present, future dynamic with Darby Allin as well. Steve Borden, man, just an absolute hero. One of my favorite wrestlers ever. And he's off, obviously, in retirement now, and I hope he's having the best old time. But this will live with me forever. And I'm sure you figured out what number 1 is. It will be hard to beat because of his face. It's the stupidest thing I'll ever say. But it is Edge returning. Also the Royal Rumble 2020. How mad is that? 2020. Full of returns. Now, I think most people knew this. It had broken sort of a few months beforehand, and everybody's eyebrows were up like, oh, I think Edge is going to return. But it wasn't until you saw it that it really sort of hit home. And yes, hopefully we'll make sure we get a picture of Adam Copeland's face. Just overwhelmed, intimidated, scared, anxious, happy, all the emotions in the world. And they did a documentary of it, and you see Beth Phoenix's face. He never thought he was going to wrestle again. And also the way he was taken out was the worst. He retained his world title at WrestleMania, and then had to walk out on Raw a week or two later, whatever it was, and be like, sorry guys, I got to go, my neck's totally screwed. Which then you go back and watch that match with Alberto Del Rio, and you're freaking out. Like, how close were you to serious injury here? Or paralysis even. I'm not trying to exaggerate, but he needed serious neck surgery, and it was falling off a bike that made him go, well, maybe I can wrestle again. If I can handle falling off a bike, the COVID sucked regardless, but it doubly sucked because that really derailed where he was going to go with this, because he needed that fan support. It still did good work, but that happened to a lot of people. But thank goodness this Royal Rumble. In fact, if it wasn't, he probably would have delayed it, right, to somewhere else. But it's just the best. And it's somehow 5 or cut to 6 years old now, which is absolutely terrible. Where does the time go? But it hasn't aged, and it still has that effect when you do watch it. Because again, you can't fake the way that he looks, and you can't fake the reaction. And WWE's in a baseball stadium too, so even the image and the production's a little bit different. It almost feels like a moment out of time. I mean, putting it at number one, you can obviously mix these numbers around. That's just the way that I did it. But when I went back and watched all of these, that was the one. It just makes me smile. I'm like, man, you really can make these things happen if you do put the time in or you put the love in, whatever it may be. And I'm glad that he's come back. He did all that cool stuff in WWE. Now he's doing cool stuff in AEW. People would like to say stupid things about Adam Copeland, which you're allowed to do, but I don't agree. But in terms of best wrestling comebacks, man, it's the GOAT. Now, of course, like I told you, I would have forgotten some, so make sure you put a comment down there. Let me know what your favorite wrestling comeback is. It could be anybody. There's no rhyme or reason to this. It could be, I don't know, Orange Cassidy coming back. Orange Cassidy is great. Of course he is. Also, click the video on the screen to get more Simon Miller content in your life. Why wouldn't you want that? Like the video, share the video. Please do subscribe. Otherwise, watch alongs. Like I say, patreon.com/Simon316. Grillermind.com/Simon. You go to Simon, get 10% off all fitness supplements. Otherwise, Simon Miller 316 for all social media. Simon Miller Fitness if you want gym advice. And then just Simon Miller on Cameo, TikTok, and Pro Wrestling Tees. Otherwise, my friends, I appreciate you stopping by. See you soon.